It's the new look of Inquirer Sports, where fans can read, watch, and listen to their favorite reporters and columnists. And, of course, check out his great podcast, Uncovering the Birds. Jeff, good morning, man. How are we today?
Good morning.
So, NFL draft obviously happened over the weekend. I'm not going to ask you to break down every single player for us, but obviously you followed along all the storylines, all the trades of later round picks. There was rumors of trading up. But let's start with the first round pick, Jahad Campbell, against the norm of the Philadelphia Eagles. Isn't that correct, drafting a linebacker in the first round?
Yeah, I mean, I would say to some extent, right? I mean, he's an off-ball linebacker. That's what he played his last 2 years at Alabama. But that was a guy that was recruited to be an edge rusher. And, you know, as Harry Roseman pointed out, I mean, that's something that they think he'll be able to do at the NFL level. And to them, that kind of justifies taking a first-round swing on him. Because, again, you're going back to what they've kind of historically done on first-rounders, and that's emphasized the front. And in their view, this is a guy that can also help them up front. But my guess is that he'll probably start off in the linebacker room, but probably cross-train a little bit. Yeah, I mean, certainly a little bit different than what they typically do at that position. I think the presence of Vic Fangio and obviously his scheme has a lot to do with it. Now, the scheme has been here for a while, and maybe you could fault Howie Roseman for not emphasizing it enough in those first few years with Jonathan Gannon and Sean Desai running the scheme. But Vic, has a little more pull, as he should, especially this offseason after doing a lot to help the Eagles win the Super Bowl. And my guess is that he played a very large part in them selecting Campbell.
They call it Uncovering the Birds for a reason. I'm sure you picked that name, and you're very good at sort of like looking under rocks and finding out stories behind. Do you believe that the Eagles just let the draft come to them, or do you believe they were rebuffed various times trying to potentially move up for maybe a different player?
No, from what I understand, they were trying to move up for Campbell.
What about the other rounds when they chose to go backwards and stuff?
Yeah, well, that would, So I asked, I think Tim McManus of ESPN had asked Howie at first on Thursday night because there had been, because he had admitted that much that he tried to move up and get Campbell. And then I had heard, don't lock me down on this, but I had heard that they had something in place with the Chargers, and almost to the point where Howie had reached out to Campbell thinking that was done, and then something had happened, whatever. I don't know. I got to dig into more of that, and I had asked Howie that specifically. He kind of just answered the question that I had asked on Saturday, which is, did you find it harder? Do you think the teams are trying to, I wouldn't say blackball him, but,
Sure.
Again, Howie's done very well at trading, and I guess maybe some of these teams don't want to be on the other end of looking like they got fleeced. So I don't know if that, I think, look, they had a very difficult chore in the fact that they were picking last in the first 3 rounds, and it's really tough. That pick doesn't have the worth of another second round or first rounder or second rounder, right? So it's tough to move up in those rounds because of that, and it would have cost them a lot to make a great jump up. For, let's say that they wanted one of the safeties in the second round. I guess it was Nick Worry. I think, let's say they wanted him, or let's say they wanted one of those tight ends that went a little earlier. It would have taken a lot for them to give up. No, I mean, I'm sure there's probably a little gamesmanship involved here. But Howie, as he pointed out, did say, we did make a number of trades. Now, there's only one trade he made to move up was was just one spot to get Campbell. More of the trades were just moving back. So we'll see how that plays out. But I do think that it was really a lot of it had to do with just the fact of where they were placed in the rounds, especially the first 3 rounds.
Speaking of trades, if the Browns don't jump the Eagles in the 5th round, is Shedeur Sanders an Eagle?
Yeah, from what I understand, that they weren't going to pick him. So,
okay.
I know they went and got McCord afterwards. But,
sure.
From what I've been told, that they were not going to pick him, and even if the Browns thought as much, that that didn't factor into their thinking.
In your mind, Jeff, when you looked at the cavalcade of picks that the Eagles had for the 2024 draft and 2025 and 2026 drafts together, Did you expect a more aggressive approach this year? Because now it looks like next year we're once again going to have the same discussion. They've got a ton of picks, and people will say they can do whatever they want, when in reality they really weren't able to do whatever they wanted this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. We'll see how it all plays out. It's tough to say now, but in terms of how the picks played out and whether they got who they wanted. To me, I thought like day 2 was probably not the way they would envision it going. Just getting the one guy, perhaps a guy that maybe would have been there a little, if you move back a little bit later in the 3rd round. I don't know, was he the third best safety? And then to move back in the 3rd and then to trade out again suggests that they missed someone in moving back. I think a lot of people thought it would be Charles Grant. There's a guy, offensive tackle from William & Mary that they brought in. They did a lot of pre-draft work on. That may have been kind of overthinking it. But yeah, I mean, 8 picks on day 3. A lot of them, I think, make sense. You have some chances there. But how many of those swings are going to be misses? And typically, more often than not, in the 3rd day, there are. They're going to end up that way. So is it really kind of worth having that many guys? That being said, they have to think about replacing some of these expensive contracts, that not only that they didn't bring guys back, but that at some point, you're going to need to fix to balance the books and the salary cap. So you need guys that aren't going to cost you an arm and a leg, right, to pan out. And that also includes the undrafted free agents. The Eagles love getting guys, at least 1 or 2 of those guys a year onto the roster because they have them at, a cheap price for 3 years or maybe even more, if you find a way to extend them. But I think it's all fair, when looking at, the number of picks that they have. I didn't think they'd come out with 10. I didn't think that they would come out without a skill position offensive player. I really thought that they'd get a tight end at some point.
Well, but, off of that, what's the latest when it comes to Dallas Goedert? I mean, I think we've been talking about this every week when you come on, the future of Dallas Goedert, and I think we all just kind of anticipate that they draft a tight end and that would be their guy. That doesn't happen. So what's the latest in your reporting?
Well, I never quite thought that they've drafted, unless they took a guy, unless they tried to get Colson Loveland or Tyler Warren. I never thought they were going to draft a guy and say, hey, you're our star. You can't really do that. I thought they would get somebody just to kind of, someone that they would think that we can, give a chance and they'll see what he pans out to be and someone that we can develop. And they didn't end up doing that. We've talked a lot about this for months now and I've kind of teetered on like 50-50 whether he's back or not. And I'd say, gun to head, probably not coming back. I think the last time we spoke about it, and I guess I'd say now probably in the light of the fact that they didn't draft the tight end and they didn't move, Dallas during the draft, is I'd say, okay, probably back. But I still don't think that's anywhere close to certain. Again, it's going to come. A lot of this falls on Dallas because he has to decide if he's going to, take what would essentially be a pay cut, and maybe try and, play this year out and see if that can get him the big contract that he wants, or he's going to, look around the rest of the league and see if they could find a better a suitor that'll be willing to pay him more. And, I wonder if that team is really out there. And because with the draft, both teams kind of lose a little leverage. The Eagles lose a little leverage now because they didn't draft anybody, and Dallas loses a little leverage because the teams that maybe needed a tight end went out and got one, right?
Right.
I'd say there's a handful of teams, especially the first 2 guys certainly, but there were 3 tight ends that went in the 2nd round that you could say, okay, these guys legitimately could be starters for us in the future. Why are we going to go get Dallas Goedert and pay him this, exorbitant amount of money? So I wrote a column. I think it's best for them to both work something out. I mean, the Eagles don't have right now an option that is anywhere close to better than Dallas Goedert. I understand you look at the offensive skill position spots and you think, oh, okay, we still have to feed AJ Brown. We still have to feed Devontae Smith. We still have Saquon Barkley. Maybe we can get not have a heavy load tight end on our roster, but I still feel like Dallas is important. I feel like that obviously that position is important to Jalen Hurts. Let's see if they can get something done and get him back here at least for another year.
Jordan Davis, 5th-year option. You got 24 hours or so on the clock. What's the gut instinct? What's the gut instinct?
I think, they're probably trying to work something. The reason why this has gone down the wires, they're probably trying to work out something to lower that number, right? Another extension, maybe, something that would not force them to pay. I think, what is it, around $13 million? But I think if they can't get something done, I imagine they're going to pick it up because, Jordan Davis is a freak, right? He's still young. I understand, he hasn't been playing much. The snap count was down last year. Which is
surprising.
Disappointing, I guess it's fair to say, for a first round pick, and someone that you thought would be an effective pass rusher, and he just hasn't done that. But he has flashed, and he does. He is very important in this defense up front, especially in the run game. So my guess is they'll try and work something out. If not, they'll probably pick it up. But we'll see. Well, it's going to go down to the wire.
Jeff, you're the man. We appreciate the time.
Thanks,
as
Jeff.
always. Great job as always with your coverage, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Podcast,
Hell yeah,
way.
man! Uncovering
really,
the birds.
Really good stuff.
Gotta check it out.
I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
You're the
Check it
man,
out.
Jeff.